Mental health, massive taboo. ADHD, another taboo.
What is this disease you have? We have this disease. We can't tell anyone. It has to be like that. Is that what a normal brain is supposed to be?
Exactly.
When I would take it in the mornings, it's almost what I can imagine what someone is like on cocaine.
So something that may be controversial, pharmaceuticals don't cancel me, but
I feel like a lot of people are being diagnosed with ADHD, but they may not necessarily have it.
that scares the shit.
Yeah.
Let's be the generation that breaks that cycle.
This is it. You know, it made me feel like I was not good enough. I don't know, man. I could talk about this for hours. I regret it. I do regret it. It still is taboo, but if it's not spoken about, it's not going to change.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Fearless Fireside Chats. I have an episode for you that promises to be unafraid, unfiltered, and totally unapologetic. If you're ready to challenge the norm and have a conversation that really matters, then you've come to the right place. Just one quick thing for me before we begin. To make sure that these fearless conversations continue happening, I have a really big favor to ask. I would be so grateful if you could please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. It's completely free and just takes a couple of seconds to do. And your support will really help us reach more people, break more barriers, and gets us one step closer to our mission of making people feel heard, seen, and understood. Thank you so much. Enjoy the episode. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fearless Fireside Chats. In this episode, we are digging deep into the realm of ADHD, what it is, beyond the trend, how it impacts real people, real lives, and the cultural stigmas that are associated to it. How do we go beyond that? And how do we educate and arm ourselves with our own journeys of self-discovery whilst bringing others along on that? Before we kick off with this episode, I have one very small favor to ask. It's completely free and will take you literally 2 seconds to do. Please, please, please like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're watching and getting your podcast, because it has such a huge impact on the conversations that we have. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our two wonderful guests today. I'm joined today by Mel and
Frankie, come here.
Frankie.
Good boy.
Hi, Frankie.
This is Frankie.
Welcome to
The
Fearless
good
Fireside
boy.
Chat.
Okay, you don't need to sniff the mic.
So we're here to talk about all things ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get down into the nitty gritty, can you explain in layman's terms, what is ADHD? How does it show up? And like beyond the buzzwords, like what really is it?
So ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, there's a range of different kinds that you can be. Me specifically, I'm not the hyperactive. I don't really have the hyperactive side of it. It's more the attention deficit, which I'm going to tell you now. If I go off tangent, just bring me back, because I tend to do that quite a lot. There's so many different things. Like a lot of people will, I don't know if you've seen ADHD reels on Instagram. It's everywhere. And, you know, there's a lot of ways to, you know, think that this is what you are, or, you know, oh, okay, you know, this is what ADHD means, so that means I have it. No, it's a lot deeper than that. It goes a long, long way. You know, for me, I know that I've had it all my life. I know that it's hereditary.
Genetically?
Yeah. You know, like my mum has it, not diagnosed. And my nan had it as well. A lot of her side of the family has it. And, you know, like I know you through my sister.
Yeah.
She has small bits of it here and there as well. And it all sort of derives from that. I think is not something that comes through experiences or anything like that. It is the way your brain is wired, and you just that's it.
It's really interesting though, because you mentioned like it's it's genetic, but then also it's like there's different scales and there's different like severities, I want to say, of like how it affects or impales people. Because obviously ADHD has become a bit of a like a buzzword or a trend word, or like, oh, you should go and get tested. And I think there's this crazy stat that like it's over like 200% of people, don't quote me on this, but like of people have been like applying to get diagnosed like in the last kind of couple of years because of like, I don't know whether it's like raised awareness or whether it's a trend per se, but there's also the flip side of the conversation where actually the trend is actually really helpful because it's bringing to light the fact that this is actually a problem, or it's something that people are living with, and they don't have to live with it because they can better understand themselves and go about this journey of self-discovery, understanding themselves, how to better regulate themselves, etc. But one thing that you did touch on was that there's different little bits of it that can show up on everyday life. And I wanted to challenge the taboo, and maybe this is a bit controversial. Is it ADHD, or is it, given the fact that so many people are being diagnosed recently, is it actually ADHD, or is it just the way that we are as humans?
This is what, interestingly enough, a good friend of mine's daughter, I was actually talking to her about this like literally 2 days ago. I was like, it's funny how it's coming to the point now where I feel like so many people have been diagnosed with it. Is that what a normal brain is supposed to be?
Exactly.
This is what I keep saying. I was like, oh, but like this is like normal. Like me and my boyfriend, we both have it. I got diagnosed a lot like longer before he did, but when he got diagnosed, he wasn't even telling me. Like he did, like this is first when we first started getting together. And, you know, I was like, why are you going to the hospital all the time? He was like, oh, like I'm getting diagnosed with ADHD. I was like, no. So that, and then like a lot of other people, like, you know, you see it on daily life, all the like, what's her name? Jessie J came out with it the other day. Doneo has ADHD. Like so many people in like, especially in the music industry, obviously like in all the other industries, but so many people have it and have been diagnosed really, really late, and it all starts making sense to them. The one thing that I wanted to say as well, like with ADHD, yeah, you know, you get prescribed medication. That's not always the best avenue to go down. Like for me, for instance, I was diagnosed about 8 years ago, and I've been taking my ADHD tablets since, religiously every day. I wouldn't say every day. Maybe it got to the point where I would only use it when I really, really needed it. So on work days, or if I have something like super important on like a weekend, I'll take it in the morning.
So not daily?
Not daily. Like it was at the beginning, and then I sort of like, I was like, I don't really need this on a Saturday and Sunday because I just want to chill. Like,
how did it feel? Like, do you feel like I personally, I feel like sometimes I'm hearing so much about like the symptoms and like emotional regulation is a form of ADHD, and like hyper productivity is a form of ADHD, and was it high performing anxiety? Hello, definitely have that. So I was like, oh my God, do I have ADHD? So then like I'm also a bit like, I feel like it shows up in different parts of my life, but then at the same time I'm like, I don't want to get tested. And why is that? Because it's a taboo, or because I don't feel like it's a real problem, like it's not affecting my day-to-day, so therefore I don't feel like I need to get tested? Or is it because I don't want to be on medication? And actually, is it ADHD or is it me? Is it ADHD or is it my personality? And if it's my personality, I don't want to change who I am.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like I feel like when I did start taking my tablets, you know, one of the words that someone used to me, she was like, are you all right? Like you like seem really like subdued. And I was like, oh, it's okay. And then I was like, I don't want these pills to like make me not who I am, because I feel like it kind of started to make me feel like that. Obviously ADHD, it's like there's such a broad spectrum that you can sort of be placed under. But for me, it's more the focus than the hyperactive. Yeah, I get like hyper focused on certain things, like cleaning. It has to be very specific and it needs to be like this, and I'll just, you know, go all into it. But then with my focus, that's where I needed the most help on, Whereas like, so when I would take it in the mornings, like the feeling that you would get is almost what I can imagine what someone is like on cocaine. Like
No way.
it you know, it raises your heart rate. You just I don't know how to describe it. It's, you know, I've got this project that I have to do at work. So take the tablet in the morning. I get to work and I'm like, okay, I need to do this. So I'll just be stuck on my laptop and no one can even speak to me. And it's like
your focus is like literally tunnel vision.
like nothing. Like, and I'll look at the time and I'm like, how is it 3:30 already? Like, you don't like, but I don't know. Medication can affect people in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But for me, that's what it is. And that's the one thing that I hated. The thing that would calm me down is smoking a cigarette. And that's obviously not healthy. Why am I going to put something in my body that I need something else to make me feel better? Like, yeah, the cigarette would calm me down, but actually nicotine doesn't do that. But you, like, it's something that
Psychological.
Exactly. So it's for certain people it would work, some people it won't. And for me, I've learned, and it's taken me 8 years, and it was kind of by accident. I'm now off my medication completely. I've been off since, I would say, about February. Reason being is there's a worldwide shortage, and I reckon it's obvious. The reason why there's a worldwide shortage is because so many people are being diagnosed now, and so many people in the US as well are getting so they're self-diagnosing themselves, and they're able to and so it's essentially run out. Wow. So we don't, like, the people that really, really need it are struggling, not being able to get it. So it got to the point where I was like, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna try and see what I can do to get off them and find something else that I can
manage yourself.
Manage to, like CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy. Loads of people with ADHD say writing lists. I know it's so easy to say that, and like everyone in the world writes lists. It's fucking hard for me to do that. Like it's hard, but when you really like practice it every day, it really,
it's like muscle memory, isn't it?
Exactly,
like
exactly. So once you're so used to it, it'll just come like naturally for you. So I'm not gonna lie, I forgot the question.
That's cool. So did I. Is ADHD a new vehicle of boosting the pharmaceutical industry? Because if you think about it, people in America are self-diagnosing. They can get these pills over the counter. There's a worldwide shortage of this medication. It's not COVID-19. This is apparently a symptom that affects your brain. And if so many people are being diagnosed with it, it goes back to my question, is it ADHD or is it just people's brains? And actually, we all know the pace of change, the environment that we're living in at the moment, the advancement of technology, everything around us is going at like 10x speed. What does that mean in terms of everyone not being able to cope? Is that an us problem or is that the environment? Because you can only really grow if the environment allows you to.
100%.
So if we as a society are getting so many more people diagnosed with ADHD, is it actually an opportunity to start looking at the environment that everyone's in, as opposed to your brain is different? Yeah. Shouldn't we celebrate those differences?
Yes, this is the thing. I feel like a lot of people are being diagnosed with ADHD, but they may not necessarily have it. And it's I want to say the same thing with like depression. Like a lot of people can be like really, really sad about certain things and can feel as though they're depressed. And, you know, they go to the doctors, here's your prescription for drugs. And it's like, well, because that's what that happened to me. Yeah. And I'm like, I looked at this prescription and I was like, I know, like, not through my own experiences, obviously, but from what I've heard other people saying, it's so hard to come off those pills that once you start, it's like, it's so hard.
You know what really worries me is that we have become this society where we're like, pills will fix it. Here's some pills. Go and take the pills and the pills will fix it. And another thing, if you look at the symptoms for a lot of different things, they're all very similar. So when I say that, I mean, if you look at the symptoms for depression, low energy, mood changes, tiredness, extreme fatigue, no will to like find joy in the things that you normally find joy. And I'm sure there's like, I mean, I'm not clinician, so I'm sure there's other things. But then you look at the symptoms for like low B12. Very, very similar. You look at the symptoms for ADHD. Very, very similar. So why? And it really scares me because if you say, okay, doctor, I've got these symptoms, they're so quick to be like, well, this is, okay, you've got depression. Or, you know, you've got this. And I've been in the situation where I've had to push them to be like, actually, or like, you've just had a baby, you're, you know, postpartum. And I'm like, there's actually something wrong with me. Like, I can feel it. Like, I know there's something wrong with me. And then they investigate and whatever, and I've got like a vitamin deficiency. But if I had just been pushed into that depression bucket, I'd be hooked on these drugs that would probably alter me, change my mood. 100%. And like, who would I become?
Exactly.
And that scares the shit out of me. Because I'm like, everyone on this earth, and I categorically believe that everyone is unique and has been put on this earth to make their own unique impact on this world. And if we are now going around changing people's behaviors, the way that they react to situations, the way that their brains are wired, you are fundamentally affecting and changing the way that that person operates, feels, is around other people. Energy is energy, and energy never lies. And I feel like that's one of the scariest things when you are under medication.
100%.
It changes.
It's scary. It's like when since I've come off it, I feel like I am my true self now, like who I used to be, which I'm not gonna lie, the person that I was a long, long time ago was a bit mad.
Hot mess.
Yeah, it was
but
very,
who
very
isn't, babe?
exactly. Who isn't? But since taking it, I've now learned the differences of, okay, like it's the impulsivity of things. Like I will have, I don't know, like £10 left in my account, and I'll be like, right, let's go on a shopping spree, and I'll be in debt, and then I'll be like, oh shit, and things will just like spiral out of control. But at the time, I'm like, fuck it, I'll deal with it later. But when you're dealing with it, you're like, but let me not deal with it, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Whereas now, if something like that was to happen, I'd be like, oh, obviously I'm older now, so I'm not gonna do that. But like, it's things that you learn along the way, right? It's so hard to change your lifestyle, and it's really like you have to really be all in it. How am I going to change myself? How am I going to deal with this? This is what the problem is. How am I going to overcome it and still be that person that I have been? Like these 8 years have been like a learning curve for me. And my family, to be honest, because we'd never really seen ADHD before in our family members, or well, I have, but like
until
they
you
don't
were
really
aware of it.
Exactly, like they like to put a name on it. They were like, oh, wow, this is.
It's really interesting that you say that, right? Because I feel like obviously you're South Asian Tamil background, and as am I, and I feel like in our culture, it's like, oh, that's just the way they are. You know, that's just the way things are. We just have to accept it, and we have to accommodate it, or you know, we have to get on with it. What's the big deal? It's fine. That's just the way they are. We have to understand that and live with that. And I feel like that is actually very harmful, because it basically, for me, and this is my perspective, so challenge me, I feel like by behaving in that way or approaching the situation in that way, you're not only brushing things under the carpet, but you're also not allowing that person to be felt, heard, or seen, because you're basically saying, you can't fix it, that's just the way they are, move on. But actually you're not saying, how does that make you feel? How are you dealing with this? Because we're just seeing it from one perspective. And as a society and as a culturally, we don't come from generations where they feel comfortable being uncomfortable. So when they're having an uncomfortable conversation, they're like, awkward, move, next. And it's like, actually, let's be the generation that breaks that cycle.
This is it.
Let's
it's like
sit in the uncomfortable.
100 million%. Like, I feel like it really needs to happen. So like, I feel like growing up, me and my sister were like super, super different. Why is it that she was doing well at school, but I wasn't? Like, there was a massive difference between both of us. And I just felt like, what am I supposed to do to make things right? Like,
how did that make you feel? Like, did you?
Oh my God, like shit. Yeah. Like, growing up, I'm like, how is it that she can sit there and read a book front to back in the matter of a day, and I'm there, and I'm pretending to read this book, and I'm like, I was like, but physically, like, I couldn't. Like, I'm like, there's so many other things around that I could like. But like, obviously, as a child, you don't really understand. Every single parents' evening, Mel's a chatterbox. She can't sit down. She can't concentrate. Like, this is her. She's like running around and doing this and that, like distracting other people. They should have realized what was happening a long time ago. Because like, I know people my age that were been diagnosed when they were kids. Why didn't my school do that for me? I can't sit there and be like, oh my God, you know, my life went to shit because of that person. I feel like everything that has happened throughout my life has molded me into the person that I am today, and I'm grateful for it. If I wasn't diagnosed back then, if I was diagnosed back then, I don't know, I might not even be someone, I might not even know who you are. I don't know. Things fall into place because of
it happens for a reason.
Exactly. But it's, you know, it made me feel like I was not good enough. And growing older, when they did find out that I had ADHD, I think for my sister, it made a lot of sense. And she was like, oh, that makes sense. But my parents were like, what is this disease you have? Like, you have this disease. We can't tell anyone. It has to be like, shh, like, we can't tell anyone. Like, and that I think was hard. Obviously, that's not the case now. But
is that lack of education and awareness?
100%. Obviously, like, you know, they weren't born and raised in this country. I think it's very different if you say I have ADHD to, you know, parents that are of, you know,
second, third, fourth generation.
Exactly. They would get it, but like, it was hard for them, and, you know, maybe still is, you know,
not as comfortable.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know, man, I could talk about this for hours. Just the way I feel, or I felt back then, with it, and having to just think that this is who I am. I'm just gonna have to deal with it, you know, like so many things like uni and school. Like, I would fail everything, and I didn't really know why, because I was like, yeah, I was interested in what they were saying, but did I? No, I wasn't. I wasn't able to really understand what I was learning in school, to make me even know what I wanted to do when I was older. You know, where I work, you know, it might not have been something that I wanted to do since, you know, when I was a little kid. I wanted to be a singer. I was going to be like a pop star. That was my
this girl can sing, by the way.
Not joking. That's what I wanted to do. But, you know, I forgot what I was talking about.
This is the realities of ADHD.
Yeah.
We're embracing it.
I was just like, I want to be a pop star. Yeah, I can sing for you if you want.
We were talking about how if you weren't diagnosed with ADHD back then, you wouldn't have been on this path that you're in now.
Exactly.
But I wanted to touch on that because you touched on like how your parents haven't really like, they understand it a lot better now. But again, obviously being first generation immigrants, they're not from this background where, first of all, from a cultural perspective, we're not used to talking about our feelings in an open environment like this. And there's a lot of saving face within our community. A lot of kind of, in Tamil, there's, we say like, kudumbam gauram, which means family respect. Yeah. And there's a lot, especially as females, we hold a lot of that respect on our shoulders. So there's a lot of, I feel like everything that you were kind of talking about has been, for me, and how I've interpreted it, is been a lot of kind of carrying yourself on a day-to-day basis, but not feeling quite up to par. And there's like almost like a gap between like, this is where I know I can be, but this is where I'm at, and I just don't understand why. And I feel like through this journey of, especially like throughout like your whole life, because I've known you for pretty much most of it, you've been on this like journey of self-discovery. And the past 8 years, I feel you, especially from everything that you've just said, you know yourself better. You understand yourself a lot better. You understand your triggers. You understand what works, what doesn't work, what to avoid, what to, what to embrace. And I also feel, going back to our parents, I feel in our communities, we feel uncomfortable talking about these kind of things, especially ADHD, because it's a mental health issue. And mental health has a stigma around it in any culture and any society. But specifically within South Asian communities, we think worst case scenario. Looney bin, literally the cartoon of like someone in a straitjacket, constrained in a mental hospital. And obviously that is fiction. I mean, there are severities of that case. I'm not saying there isn't, but it's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum. And if I'm being really honest, like everyone is on this bloody spectrum. Let's be real. Like life is hard. There are moments in everyone's lives where we will go through something that will really rock our mental health. And I feel like we need to get to a better place of being able to broach these conversations, especially with the older generation. Not just to help educate them, but to help them understand us a little more. And obviously you've been on this journey. Like what would be your advice to our listeners who are like, do you know what? Everything she's saying, that is me. Like I'm resonating so hard with this. How do I even begin to open up this conversation with my parents, and how, or close ones, and how do I navigate that, because I'm uncomfortable about it?
It's something that's so hard, but listening to what I've been through, and like I regret not sitting down with my parents and talking about it. I still haven't done that. So I know that they understand what it is and all of that sort of stuff, but I haven't really had the time to, not that I don't have the time, but like I was nervous to sit down and talk to my parents if they think that this is so like, oh my God, we have to keep this quiet, no one can know about it. To obviously where I am now, that I'm like, everyone knows what it is. What I would say to people out there that you think you might have it, or you do have it, and they're kind of a bit, we can't tell anyone about this. You have to just sit down and kind of like an intervention kind of thing, and just sit down and talk to them and make them understand the difference between what you have and what they think that you have, because it's I'll tell you right now, it's two completely different things. They do not understand what it is. And also from even like their research into it, you see all these reels on Instagram. This is what ADHD is. This is what ADHD is. You have ADHD if da 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 da, and they can be watching these videos thinking, oh, okay, but no, like every single person is individual, and they need to understand. And when you do that with your parents, they will help you, and they will be able to guide you and make sure that, this is what you should be doing, like avoid these things and, do these things. And I regret it. I do regret it. I think now our family have a really, really good relationship, and it's because I have been a lot more open about it. I still haven't had that conversation. Maybe I'll do it after this podcast, who knows? But I'm old enough to be able to handle it myself now. For those who are younger, it's not something that you can go through on your own. Like it really, and the people that are going to be there for you no matter what. There were so many things that I did in my life that I was like, oh my God, my parents are going to kick me out of the house. No, they ain't going to do that. They're not going to look at you as if you're
disowned.
Exactly. Trust me, as scared as you might be, it's going to be the best thing that you ever do. Talk to them, make them understand what you're going through, how hard it is for you, the reasons why you've been acting out, or, you know, it's not because of you don't want to listen to your parents. It's that impulsivity part of ADHD. Like, you do things, even though you're not going to, you know you're going to get in trouble, but you do it anyway. And it's not because you're trying to be a dick. It's the way your brain is wired, and they would understand it a lot more if you're open with them and making them understand it.
I also think it's when you're younger, I definitely don't have the same level of self-awareness that I do now at 36 than what I did at 26 or 16. And I think also, obviously, that's part of the parcel of like growing and experiencing life and discovering yourself and all that stuff. But there's something in it about feeling safe to open up, because all of this is, yes, it's uncomfortable, but beyond that, it's being vulnerable. And you're really opening yourself up to your bear to be like, actually, you know what? Like, this is how I'm really feeling. And this is how it affects me. And even, I didn't do this until recently as well. Like, some things that my mum would say or family members would say that are like flippant. Like, da-da-da-da. And I'm like, you know, when you say that, that actually like it hurts me. Like, and they're like, but why? And I'm like, because it has this effect on me and it makes me feel like this. And they're like, oh, I had no idea.
Exactly. Because you don't say it.
How
are they to know?
Exactly. It's a power of communication. And I feel like in every aspect, not just in this conversation, but like in every aspect of life, I feel like communication is so underrated. And I was talking to a friend, and he's in a relationship now, and he's been looking for like a partner for a while and whatever. And he was like, God, you know what is the best thing about this relationship? And I was like, what? He was like, the communication is so damn sexy. And I was like, what? And then he was like, just, she gets me.
Yeah.
We communicate and it's fucking amazing. And I was like, I actually understand what you're saying, because there's another level of intimacy when you get from communicating, not just the good things, but especially the hard things, especially the icky things, especially the difficult things, especially the hard things, especially the uncomfortable things, because a lot of people think, oh, you're brave enough to talk about it, so it's not uncomfortable for you. Actually, it's completely the opposite.
Yeah.
You're probably more scared about it than the other person that you're talking to.
Yeah.
But it's about pushing through that. And I think, again, it comes back to that element of, if you can do that and you find safety in doing that, that unlocks a whole another dimension of the art of the possible.
Exactly.
Because you've got a support system.
Exactly.
Like, how have you found, like, obviously you've been on a journey for the last 8 years, but having that support system there, and you mentioned, like, you know, your family dynamics is so much more better. What would you say was like kind of the root cause for that?
What, that is better now?
Yeah.
I think the meds helped a lot to just sort of like bring me back. And I feel like the meds did work. Don't get me wrong in what I said earlier, saying, you know, you shouldn't take meds or anything like that. It really helped me understand what I need to do in life to succeed.
So you almost needed the medication to find balance.
Exactly.
And understand the do's and don'ts.
Exactly. But now that I know what these things are, it's led me to, for my family to see what I'm capable of. You know, I don't know if you remember, but I used to do these comedy shows. And, you know, for the longest time, my parents were like, oh, okay, comedy show. Blah, blah. And then they came and they were like, damn, this is really successful. This is actually bigger than I thought it was going to be. Like, they had no idea. And like, that was the first time I looked at my dad and I was like, oh, yes, he's proud of me. And I even like, my sister said it, and like my mum and my dad, they both said it. And I was like, oh my God, that's like the first time I've ever heard you say that you're proud of me. I'm not going to cry yet, but like, it's still like, I will never forget that day. And it's showing what, like, you can take these meds, kind of figure out what you need to do in life. Well, this is what I've done. Figured out what I've had to do in life, figured out how to do things, how to be successful, put it into practice for them to see it, and for them to see that it's working. It's then in turn made our relationship a lot stronger. And, you know, I feel like we're finally like that happy family again. And we weren't for years. And now it is. I just, oh God, like to the point where it would be really hard. Like I wouldn't want to be home, or because I know that I'm just going to get all this ag. But the reason why I was getting the ag was purely because of all the things that I was doing. And now it's like, Mum, do you want to come over and stay over for like a week? And she's like, huh, well, where's this coming from? It's just like, you know, like, it's so nice like to have that want again. And it's so different. But the reason why it was is because of me ending up being diagnosed with it and figuring out, you know, these are the medications that I'm taking, this is what's working, and putting it into practice. Now that I'm off it, obviously it's a lot harder. And I'm doing things like, you know, writing lists. And I know lists sound so silly, but it really works. And just loads, there's so many things that you can do to make yourself, like, I don't know, have you ever, well, we already touched on CBT, right? So that is one of the main things, I think, for me, that has put me in a place now that I feel like we're just a very, very, very happy family. And also,
just on that, for anyone that doesn't know what CBT is, what is CBT?
So cognitive behavioral therapy, it's like really teaching your brain how to do things, and kind of like the more and more you do it, the more it's just going to become like second nature.
Give me an example.
Oh God. Putting the dishes in the dishwasher after having a meal rather than leaving it in the sink, because it's going to stay there for 5 days. And it is. I know that sounds disgusting, but that's how I used to live. And like, you know, when I was living with my parents, obviously it wouldn't be there because my mum would clean it. And that was another reason why she would be like so angry at me. Like something so minor like that. Whereas like now it's like I finish and we clean and like the whole house is like nice. Whereas before, like, oh my God, I can't even tell you like how bad it gets. But also, you know, not saying that it doesn't happen now. Like, yeah, it does happen. I mean, I live in a household with me and my boyfriend. We both have ADHD and neither of us are on meds. So like, it does get hard sometimes.
And you're surviving and thriving, by the way.
And he's amazing. And, you know, like we work really, really well together. We know what works, what doesn't work. And we know that the house can get into a tip sometimes. But I know that one little thing of putting those dishes away is going to make your life so much easier. And the more you do it, the more it just becomes second nature, and you're going to do it. And that's going to alleviate a lot of stress when you have people coming over and you're like, shit, I need to clean. Like, oh my God. We work really, really well together though, because like we'll have the house in a mess, and then on a Sunday, every day without fail, the whole house will be like spick and span, and we just do that every week. It's great.
And it, like, as you speak, when you're talking about either your boyfriend or your family, what I'm hearing is that level of awareness of yourself, but also awareness of others have for you. And I think that's so beautiful to hear, because I know not a lot of people have that. And that is really a gift, but also it's not a gift that comes lightly.
Yeah.
It comes from the work, and it comes from the work that, thanks Frankie, comes from the work that you've put in terms of understanding yourself, but understanding, having a greater awareness for the situation and the what ifs as well. There's different levels of ADHD, obviously. And I know some of them are like around like hyper focus, and then there's some that's like around like emotional regulation. Have you experienced that, and how's that been for you?
I think with the emotional side of it, yeah. I don't know about other people with ADHD, but I do know that my emotions are a lot more heightened than it would be for,
What do you mean?
like something that would be so minor. I would feel really, really, really like it would cut deeply for me. Oh God, I can't even think. But okay, so I picked up my boyfriend from Gatwick the other day, and he was really annoyed that I was late because he had to get to work. And although I sort of explained, I left at the time that you told me to leave. And he like obviously like he people have their certain emotions, right? So he's upset, and it's made me feel like, oh my God, like I can't believe that he's so ungrateful. And then I was like, but obviously I'm not saying this out loud because CBT's made me like
be more aware of your
exactly.
thoughts.
So then like we're driving, and I'm like, okay, so do you still think it's my voice? I was, sorry. But like, it's something that you have to learn. Like it really, really, really affected me that he was like really annoyed at me. But I'm like, I did everything. Like, have I done something wrong? I don't know. Like, we went to the chemist the other day. He had a little bit of a rash, and we went to the chemist, and I'm talking, and he was like, can you let me talk? And I'm like, rude. But I was like, do you know what I mean? Like little things like emotion like that, it can spiral out of control and really like bring you down.
Like you feel things but on 10x.
Exactly.
So like
it's hard.
Yeah. This is why I think I have ADHD, because there's so many things that you've just said that I'm like, oh my God, that's me. But then I'm also like, is it just another label? Because like recently I've just suffered and I'm recovering from burnout. I had a baby, and I'm still like adjusting to my, identity, who I am outside of motherhood. I'm going on that kind of self-discovery journey on its own. I'm launching a podcast and seeing where that's going, and I'm following passion projects. So like, and I have 2 kids under 5. So
that's a lot.
Some people could say you got a lot of shit on your plate. And obviously you're not at optimal or whatever. But I'm also a bit like, I struggle because I feel like we're so quick to want to put ourselves in boxes or labels or get it over and done with. This is what you've got and this is what you need to do. And I think we don't often sit in the uncomfortable. And that kind of leads me on into that question around what, like mental health, massive taboo. ADHD, another taboo. Why do you think it's such a big taboo in 2024, specifically though, within our South Asian Tamil community?
I just like, honestly, I think with our society, they really do care about what other people think of them.
People pleasing.
Yeah, and also like everything's a fucking competition. Like, oh, have you seen so and so? Their daughter's here, and you look what they're doing, and I'm like, they just make me feel like shit. Like, why am I not able to do that? Like, why am I not a fucking doctor?
Like,
why?
That's the status bar. Like,
exactly.
That's the bar that everyone needs to be
exactly. And like, I don't want to use ADHD as an excuse. Because like there's so many people that have ADHD that are so successful, that have, passed their, exams with flying colours. I don't want to use it as an excuse, but it's really hindered my path to where I could have potentially been. So basically I'm using it as an excuse.
No, but like, I think it's your personal journey.
My personal, exactly. It's very personal.
Yeah.
And like with the family side of it, it's like, they hear that there's like, it's a mental health issue. We can't let people know because then that person's going to tell this person's going to tell that person's going to tell this person. And like, everyone's going to fucking know. And like, we're going to be looked at as the family that's, and like all these thoughts can go in your mind. But for them not understanding what it is, they're always going to think like that. So that's why I say, like, for anyone that is going through anything like this, like, just be open, or even like have someone who is a family member that can support you during this time, because it's hard to do it on your own. It's so hard. It's taken me 8 years to get to where I am. And I wasn't able to do it with my family. Luckily, I found the most amazing man in the world. And he's helped me through that journey. And we really understand, like, both sides of his ADHD and my ADHD. And it's really, it's enabled me to do what I need to do as well to end up succeeding in life. I can't stress it enough. You need to have someone. Frankie, stop. You need to have someone there to. Frankie, stop. There's no one there. You really need to have someone there to just help you. What was the question again?
Why is it still such a taboo?
Yeah, like
you can't just start from. I can't stress enough.
I can't stress enough how much you need that person to understand what you're going through, because it wouldn't be such a taboo to them if they understood what it was. And it's not the same as, like, I've got 7 personalities, or
which one's going to show up?
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? It's not the same. It's like, it would really help you as a person to develop knowing what you have and dealing with it and becoming something amazing, compared to not telling anyone and keeping it yourself, because it still is a taboo. But if it's not spoken about, it's not going to change. So, you know, we need to have, like, the generations after us, like, they need to be open and be able to speak to their family and friends about it, and just get rid of this stupid stigma around it. Like,
okay, challenge. What if I'm not, like, bold and brave and brass and not able to just sit my family down and be like, listen, this is what is happening and I'm going to tell you what it is? What if I am someone that's like, I don't even know what is going on. I haven't been diagnosed yet. I feel like it's something. I need to tell them because I am feeling so much weight and pressure and feeling so unsatisfied and I am spiraling. What would your top 5 things be to that person?
So hard. I think the main thing is to have someone that you can speak to, someone that you trust, that they can give you advice. You can, like, be very open, because you can't keep anything either. If you're going to try and talk about this, it needs to be all of it, you know. I would highly not recommend trying to diagnose yourself by watching Instagram reels,
or TikTok.
Yeah, either or I don't know, what is it, Threads these days? I don't know.
God. I can't even keep up.
Oh God, it was better back in the day when it was just MySpace, isn't it? What was it, Bebo?
Now we're showing our age.
Bebo, massive. If you really want to really understand what it is, do your research. Like, Google is your best friend, but take that, like, if you're gonna Google ADHD symptoms, don't just go on the NHS website or anything like that. Like, really, like, find magazines and those kinds of things to really understand what it is, things that can help you, with people that are nervous to talk about their family. It's a hard one, because
when you say, like, you know, when you said, like, find someone that you can trust and speak to, use them as your aid to sit and talk to the rest of your family, because I do feel like, as scary as it is, it's just something you're going to have to do. And I mean, open to challenge, and I welcome that challenge. But at the end of the day, if you can't sit down with your nearest and dearest, and no matter how scary and how challenging and how uncomfortable this is going to make you feel, know that this is a conversation that needs to be had. nothing's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
No amount of medication, no amount of self-awareness for you is not going to help that family dynamic happen and shift until they understand this is what's happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
And the role that they then play in that.
Mm-hmm.
And now, as I say this, the devil's advocate in my mind is saying, but what about the people that don't have safe houses and safe families and toxic parents and dysfunctional families? Then I'm not saying go and be open and vulnerable to them, because you yourself know where is safe and where is not safe. I think no one else is a better judge of character than you are. But my advice to those people would be seek professional help.
Yeah.
Go and speak to a CBT therapist, or go and speak to, like, there's so many like really like cheap free outlets out there that you can get support from.
I feel like as well, just you talking about like CBT therapy as a whole, like
life-changing.
It is.
Oh God.
I swear to God, the best thing I've ever done in my life. And I tell you that, and I used to be so embarrassed to tell people that I'm seeing a therapist. It's so, like, having a therapist is so normal.
It's not even normal.
It's like abnormal not having one.
It's a necessity.
Yeah.
Because it's so funny you say that, because I started having therapy this year. I know I need this, but I'm not broken. And I was like, whoa, where is that coming from? What do you mean you're not broken? And for me, and I'm really fortunate to have my mum, because she was like, I think you do need therapy. And like, I know that's very different because she is first generation immigrant, and I know that is a privilege. But even with my mum, I was like, I'm not broken, you know? And I'm second gen, born and brought up here. And if I'm feeling like that, it made me think, where did that come from? Like, is that us as a society and a culture saying, if you go to therapy, that means you've got issues. And if you've got issues, that's a bad thing. Because, you know, blasé, like, will be like, really flippantly, like, oh, yeah, it's got issues.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, whatever. But now when you think about it, it's quite deep. It cuts really.
It's so deep. And I feel like with the whole therapy thing, like, it can really make you understand what you need. Like, these people are there to, I would say, if you think that you have ADHD and you're looking for a diagnosis, go to a therapist first, because that's what I did. Like, I was sitting there with a therapist and they're the ones who were like, oh, have you ever heard about ADHD before? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, finally, like, someone actually knows what I'm talking about. Frankie, stop. They actually know what I'm talking about. Like, this is what it is. Like, finally, it's so many people were saying it to me, and I was just like, oh, I don't know. Like, I didn't really know much about it either. But
yeah, I mean, it wasn't such a trend 8 years ago.
This is what I mean. So, like, therapy is, it can, you know, they'd be able to advise you what, you know, if it is or if it isn't that. But also, if it's not that, they'll be able to tell you what you need to do in order for you to feel like normal again. You know, if you are going through things and you're doing certain things that you think might be because of ADHD, it might not be. And, you know, the best person to hear that from is a therapist, like, as opposed to a GP. Like, they're not gonna fucking know. Like, they come and deal with, like, people that have chest infections and this and that and this and that, whereas, like, a therapist will really be able to, you know, you're not going to get that answer in a day. This is a long process of many, many hours sitting down with this one person and you letting everything out to your core. But, and, like, it is like, you feel so vulnerable saying this to someone that you don't even know, really. Obviously, after a few months or whatever, you will really know who they are, and that's when you start to open up more and, like, tell them everything. And then for them to turn around and even ask you, have you ever heard about ADHD? That's when you're like, shit, penny dropped. I wouldn't say go into therapy and be like, I think I have ADHD, what do you think? I would just, you know, the point of it is to really get into the nitty gritty, like, things that you feel really uncomfortable talking about, you know, something that may have happened years ago, or, you know, I'm just, like, saying this out, like, randomly, like, something that might have happened years ago, something that happened recently that is, like, affecting you, or anything bring it all out, put it on the table, and then like
see what happens.
If you don't have anyone that's, you know, if you can't speak to your family, if you can't speak to a close friend, speak to a therapist. The best thing that you can do is speak to someone that you have no idea who they are. There's no judgment. Yeah. There's absolutely no judgment. And you know that everything that you spoke about in that room is not going to leave.
I think there's power in that. And there's power in that to unlock vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that when you find a therapist that you really connect with and that gets you, and you know you're safe and there is no judgment and they're just there to help you figure your own shit out. And almost sometimes just saying it out loud, it's like, oh, okay, I see that. Right. Because I've noticed that even behavioral changes or like mindset changes, oh my God, mindset changes. Like it's just so powerful. But we are running out of time.
Yeah, I know.
But before, I mean, we could talk about this for hours and hours. But
we should do like episode 2.
Let us know if you want another part. But before we do wrap up, I want to ask you one question. If there's one thing that our listeners can take away from this episode or from your journey, what would it be?
I think I've said it about 17 times already, but I think the best thing that anyone can do that thinks that they might have ADHD or knows that they have ADHD and all of that sort of stuff, you need to have someone to open up to about it, because you're not going to get anywhere on your own. Well, unless you're like Superwoman, I don't know. But like,
does that person exist?
I know I am, but you know, not joking.
No, I think that's such an important takeaway because
100%.
Everyone can feel really alone in what they experience. And I know I felt like that when you go through something and you don't say it out loud. And then you say it to one person. They're like, oh my God, me too. And you're like, what? And guys, this is the whole premise of Fearless Fireside Chats. It's to make sure that you are not alone and make you feel seen, heard, and validated in your experiences. So thank you for listening to this episode. And I really hope that you have taken away so many nuggets and it has helped shape your mind and your perspective on what ADHD is. There are so many helpful articles and outlets that we'll try and link below in the episode description. So have a look at that. And if you haven't done so already, please do like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening, because it really, really does help us bring more fearless conversations just like this one. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mel.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm Frankie.
I'm Frankie. Thank you so much for being open.
Good voice.
Being a good little doggy. Good boy. Thank you, honestly, for being so open
you're welcome.
And honest and vulnerable. It's not the easiest, but I'm sure there are so many listeners out there that are going to really help.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully I help someone.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. And until next time, I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Fearless Fireside Chats. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If today's conversation really resonated with you, I am so glad. But don't be a gatekeeper. Share it. This is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. A place where we can bring really tough conversations to light and give a voice to the voiceless and power to the unheard. Remember, you are not alone. So let's keep breaking down barriers, lifting each other up and pushing for a world where everyone feels seen and heard. Until next time, stay bold, stay brave, and keep being fearless.